Good afternoon, and welcome to the public hearing of Columbus City Council's Finance Committee. I am Councilmember Priscilla Tyson. I'm chair of the committee, and I'm joined today by Councilmember Shannon Hardin. Before starting, I want to make sure that you're aware that this hearing is being recorded for rebroadcast on CTV, Columbus's governmental television channel 3, and the rebroadcast schedule is available at www.columbus.gov. This afternoon, we will be briefed on the city's third quarter financial review. Then we will transition to a hearing on the 2016 budget and presentations from several department directors. Prior to hearing from the directors, we will hear from our auditor, who will review our city revenue. To begin, the Director of Finance, Director Paul Rakowski, will review our financial position through the third quarter of 2015. The third quarter review is an important financial report. By the end of the third quarter, we have an accurate picture of how our revenue and expenses will come in for the year as a whole. This information has also been used to inform the mayor's budget proposal. On November the 12th, Columbus City Council received the mayor's general fund budget proposal, and we will hold a series of hearings to discuss that proposal in the coming weeks and months. Columbus is one of the best managed cities in the entire country. We continue to be the largest city in America to receive a AAA bond rating from the three major credit ratings agencies. We have streamlined the operation of our government and are on track to saving taxpayers nearly $260 million. We promised our residents in 2009, through efficiencies and reforms, we would save money, and we have kept that promise. We will continue to set aside dollars for the rainy day fund. This year, in 2015, we put in $2.2 million. In a moment, Director Rakowski will begin his review of our finances. He will share that the city's continued efforts on hiring and expenditures will allow us to, the controls on hiring and expenditures, will allow us to once again spend less than we had originally budgeted. I will now turn the floor over to Director Rakowski. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Tyson. I'm going to move fairly quickly through this, as I know we have the hearing on the 2016 mayor's budget as well after this. But as you stated, the Finance and Management Department provides this quarterly analysis throughout the year where we examine current and projected financial condition of the city for the remainder of the year, and we do that based on a review of all the current year expenditures and revenues to date. And then we also work with the departments to look at projections for the rest of the year, including expenditures for all of our departments and offices. And although we tend to always focus on the general fund because it houses those very important activities such as police and fire, refuse collection, economic development, code enforcement, our review does include an analysis of all of the other operating funds, major operating funds. That includes the enterprise funds over in the Department of Utilities, our internal service funds such as our Fleet Internal Service Fund, technology, revenue funds such as the Street Construction Maintenance and Repair Fund, our Health Operating Fund, Rec and Parks, and then our Community Development Block Grant Fund, which obviously funds various departments and divisions throughout the city. You had mentioned the third quarter review is really our most important review. It's the most predictive of all of our reviews, and it's the one that we base our following year's budget carryover on, combining that with the auditor's revenue estimate for the current year as well. Most trends are set by this time in the year, so projections are easier, they're more accurate to make. In the general fund, as of the third quarter, we've improved our position significantly since the mid-year review. We now expect that we'll expend a little over $796 million. That's $17.7 million, almost $18 million less than the original appropriation. That represents an $8.9 million improvement from the second quarter projection and a $13.3 million improvement from the first quarter projection. And again, this is important because it allowed us to meet the carryover number that we used to construct the targets that we sent out over the summer to the various departments for the 2016 budget, and it's what those budget submissions back and what the mayor's budget submission to council was based on. So it was very important. If you look at Table A, which we have up now, that's really the fiscal position of the general fund. Obviously, the highlight here is that $17.7 million balance that we'll have from spending less than our appropriation. The other funds that are within here are ESF, the rainy day fund. Those projections really haven't changed since the mid-year review. Still looking at a 66.9 projected ending balance in the rainy day fund. That keeps us on track for meeting our $75 million commitment by the end of 2018. Anticipated expenditures fund, our 27th pay period fund that we use to pay that extra pay period. It's again a $15.4 million balance that hasn't changed. Reflects this year's deposit of $2.3 million. That keeps us on track to meeting that obligation. And then the basic city services fund. $11 million was deposited in this fund in 2012. There was another deposit of $5.7 million in 2014. A deposit of $5.2 million this year, a portion of which, $1.8 million, we have built into next year's budget, and that'll leave a balance in this fund of $3.3 million in 2016. When we look at revenue, and I won't spend a lot of time on revenue because I know the auditor is going to talk about revenue in his projection. I only like to point out two things in this chart, and it's pretty easy to see those two things. One is that first set of bars. This is a revenue comparison 2014 to 15, and it illustrates the really heavy reliance that the city has on the income tax to fund its general fund activities. And it also highlights, when you look at all those other sources of revenue, the flat or even declining nature of all of the other major categories of revenue. And that is an extremely important thing to be aware of in our general fund, is that we really are living and dying off of the income tax. It's the only source of revenue that we're seeing any kind of growth in. The auditor has revised his estimate for the purpose of the 2016 budget. That has resulted in our carryover amount of the $30.2 million going into next year. And again, that's a little under $18 million in savings and $12.5 million in additional revenue. That little pop-out shows a little bit more detail in regard to some of those other major categories. But again, it's all the income tax. If we look at expenditures, these are down, as I said, by almost $18 million below the appropriation. There really are no significant deficits in any general fund departments or offices. The only deficit that we're showing is in the division of fire, and that's really related to an overtime issue in fire. The overall deficit is a little over $800,000 in that division, but it's offset. The real overtime deficit is about $2.2 million. It's offset by other fairly significant savings within the fire division. So they pushed that down to a little over $800,000. We continue, as you mentioned, to see the benefits of the reform efforts, producing savings and controlling the rate of growth within our personnel budgets. Vacancies and other personnel savings are really projected at $2.4 million. Our savings, when we look at where those are coming from, it's really elected officials are showing fairly significant savings. That's really personnel largely, with some savings in services. Public safety, it's really many of the same areas as the mid-year review. Police, it's civilian wages and sworn overtime. Also some supplies tied to helicopter fuel and savings in services. Again, helicopter maintenance and also fleet savings. You look at the director's office, it's where it usually is at when we look at savings. About $450,000 in the jail contract. We did talk about the overtime issue in fire. Personnel savings and through vacancies and services controls, or some contracts taken in-house. For the health department, rec and parks, again, vacancies and some savings in services, mainly utilities. Public service, These are largely in the fleet division, the refuse division, because of fleet savings and vacancies within the refuse division. And then within finance and management, we also are showing significant savings due to vacancies and controlling hiring, utility savings in the facilities management division of $2 million. And then in the citywide account, where we place many of those expenses that are shared throughout the city, we are currently projecting savings within the citywide account of about $3 million. Development, when we look at development, again, we're looking at savings in vacancy savings, and then some minor supply and service savings across all of the divisions in development. So all of this is very good news. It's a significant increase from the mid-year review. Many of the same trends that we see throughout the year continued into the third quarter, and it's our hope that obviously those have continued in the final quarter of the year to provide even additional carryover into next year. I know it's important for council to be able to have some funds to add to the budget for their priorities. So we hope that we're going to see that once we get to year end. And then the final table is just that overtime table that we talked about. Really fairly significant savings in police. Our continued issues with the civilian in police, but that's largely due to the call center and the fact that we're doing a lot of training in the call center. And then, of course, there's always turnover with the comm-techs, but a lot of that is dealing with the training issues for the conversion of the fire alarm office. And then we did talk about the fire overtime issue, largely related to providing those services to some of the townships and some of those areas of the city that are on the outskirts. So with that, that's the end of my comments, and I could take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Just a few comments. First of all, I just want to commend you, because I know if you start looking at these numbers and the reason we're able to carry over those dollars, which is absolutely important, because if we didn't carry over those dollars, we would have to have a very different budget going into the next year. But we basically balance our budget for the next year based upon the carryover, and the carryover is pretty much based on the vacancies, and basically the vacancies, the hiring controls that I know you have set up, and we've discussed them already, but that is really, really key, that we have to have that carryover to be able to continue with the services that we have. As you shared with us, that the main source of income is the income tax. And if we were just to have a budget for 2016 without having that carryover, we wouldn't be having the budget that's going to be presented, I'm sure, shortly. So that's very important. I know that's a lot of you and your department's work on that. But I also want to thank all the directors, because just looking at the table, certainly every single department has worked really hard to make sure that they came in under budget. And I want to thank you for that, because that's helping us to get to the next year to be able to provide the services to our community. So I really, Paul, I have certainly enjoyed working with you, and just know how this is always a priority for you, and how you are working with the directors to make that a priority. Other than that, you've explained, since everyone's really in the budget has shown that they have not spent their anticipated budget. However, we also talked about the expenditures, and you explained what those happen to be, mostly within the fire department, what's happened there. And I know we're working hard to try to ensure that we have more training of our civilian force there, and you explained why that's happening. And again, how we're a large city, and we are working with the townships and trying to provide services to them, and we are having overtime. Do you foresee that being the same in 2016?
I mean, I could defer to Director Speaks in that regard, but they are working very hard on this issue. It's a very difficult issue to get our hands around because of those changes with the townships, and the fact that we are trying to ensure that the citizens of Columbus have the kind of service that they expect in those areas of the city. I think that we're going to have another class of firefighters. We're going to graduate a class. We're going to be freeing up some firefighters when we get the fire alarm office converted over to civilians. So I think all of those should help that issue, as well as the division working hard to make sure that they've got, managing their personnel as best they can. But I would defer that for next year in regard to Director Speaks.
Councilmember Chairperson Tyson, Councilmember Page and Hardin, thank you so much. Let me just say that in addition to the items that Director Rakowski mentioned, we have hit an all-time high this year with respect to our EMS transport revenues. So while we have experienced greater expenses with respect to overtime, our medics who are being paid with that overtime dollars are also bringing more dollars back into the city with respect to the billing and the vital service that we're providing of getting them from a crisis at their home or place of work to the hospital.
Thank you, Director Speaks. Again, welcome Councilmember Jiza Page. Are there any questions from my council members to the director?
So just following up, thank you, Chairperson Tyson, and thank you, Director Rakowski and Chairperson Tyson, for the work that you've done on this budget. I think, like Chairperson said, you guys have done a great job preparing a budget where we actually have carryover, and that is due to the hard work of all the directors and administration with the support of council. Just following up on the question that Councilmember Tyson asked about the shortfall in fire. For clarity, we have built that into the 2016 budget. Again, how we will deal with that going forward. Can you tell me one more time what we anticipate and how we anticipate that looking for 2016?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Tyson, Councilmember Page, and Hardin. Again, we are working very diligently to keep that overtime within our budget. Let me also stress there's also an age-old debate versus hiring more folks versus overtime, and which is economically better. So we are trying to be very good stewards of the public finances. We believe that overtime thus far is the best means in which to provide our services and to generate additional monies on behalf of the city. So we will do our best to stay within our overtime allotment for 2016.
Thank you. We want to make sure that that you guys have what you need, and we'll work and continue to support
Thank you.
You guys along the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And again, congratulations to the directors that you have, through your hard work, we are having dollars to be able to go to the 2016 budget. And we do not have any speaker slips. And so what we were going to do now is transition to the 2016 budget briefing. So if all the directors want to get in place, that's great. And I would like to now formally conclude the third quarter review and move into the briefing for the mayor's 2016 budget proposal. The proposal for the general operating fund is $834.8 million. As we've heard tonight, the city's financial position is stable. What has been proposed can be described as a continuation budget, enabling the city to maintain vital services to residents. To begin our discussion of the proposed 2016 operating budget, I would like to invite Auditor Dorian to provide an overview of the city's finances. Mr. Dorian, the floor is yours.
I don't think we have it loaded, do we? We have a PowerPoint presentation. I don't believe it is loaded right now. Oh, there we go. There we go. Well, thank you, Chairwoman Tyson, Ms. Page, Mr. Hardin. What I would like to do is to not only show you our official estimates for next year, but also give some history as to where we have come as a city over some rather difficult years and rather difficult things to deal with when you consider cuts of various revenue sources from the state of Ohio. We have this, forgive me just a moment if we can get this. Okay. We have a PowerPoint. I think all of you have this, and if you can follow along with me. Yeah, the first document is a letter, which you have seen before. It's the official revenue estimate, really an estimate of available resources for the city's general fund to operate on in the year 2016. Now, I would like to go beyond that and go into some details. So in looking at the document, you'll see a page titled General Operating Fund, number 10, and other data, and the various table of contents. So let's see if I can pull that up. Not quite, okay. Going beyond the table of contents, and I'm looking at what is now called page 1, you'll see, as Mr. Rakoski indicated, the most important factor that this city has to rely on when it comes to revenues is its city income tax. When you think of what I call current revenues, those revenues that come in within a given year and exclude for a moment carryover resources, income tax is going to make up about 77% of our resources for the general fund next year. Some of you I know are familiar with those numbers. Maybe some are not so familiar. You'll see that if I pick the 6 largest sources of revenue for the general fund and just enumerate 6 out of hundreds of different sources when you get into very, very detailed items, it makes up almost 94% of our general fund resources. Next to income tax, and you'll see how the others pale in comparison. Property tax makes up about 5.3%. Shared revenues, and we'll get into these details, about 3.5%, and so forth. So again, income tax just dwarfs all other sources of revenue. We look at page 2. There's a brief history of income tax. And when I show you data for 2015 and 2016, even 2015 still contains some estimates. Data prior to that is actual data. But if you look at the income tax growth patterns, you'll see in 2011 a growth of about 6%, 2012 5%, 5.5%, and so forth. This year in 2015, I'm looking at a growth pattern of about 4%, but in my usual conservative, reasonably conservative nature, I'm going to hold that official estimate to 3% for next year until we get into some of the year and see how it looks at that point. I'll mention to you that, once again, Columbus, Ohio was the 3rd city in the nation to have a municipal income tax. Philadelphia was first, 1939. Toledo, Ohio was second, 1947. And Columbus, Ohio was third in 1948. I'd also mention to you that since 1948, Columbus has had 5 years of what we call negative growth. It sounds like an oxymoron. Basically, we got less money one year than we received the year before. Out of those 5 years, 3 of those 5 years have occurred since 2002. So that's not ancient phenomena to see ups and downs in this source. You well know that when we collect $1 of income tax, we take 25 cents or 25% of it and set it aside in what we call formally a debt service fund. That pays for all your roads, all your playgrounds, all your parklands, your fire stations, police stations, heavy fire equipment, so forth. I will mention, not to be confused with water and sewer facilities and water and sewer resources. No tax money goes into water and sewer operations or improvements. We have on page 3, to give you a little idea of in the form of bar charts, the fluctuations in those taxes. And you can see there's volatility there. There's volatility. That big, high, long bar for the year 2010, you'll remember our income tax rate increase took place in the fourth quarter of 2009, and that burst of growth, those are nominal dollars, not adjusted for inflation, actual dollars. That's that big growth item in 2010. Page 4 gives you some of that narrative on some of that history of the tax. Again, you'll see that I try to show that in the state of Ohio, municipalities can impose an income tax rate up to 1%. Whenever one city attempts to go beyond 1%, you can only do so with a vote of its residents, of its eligible voters. Let me go now, and by the way, please feel free to interrupt me at any time. I'd like now to go to property taxes, page 5, and you'll see property taxes for many years were made up of two components: personal property taxes and real property taxes. And then from those taxes, the county deducts certain amounts of money each year to pay for their costs of collections, administrative charges, and so forth. I want to point out to you when I mentioned some of the cuts in municipal funding that has occurred that cities have to overcome. If you look briefly at page 6, you would see the history of personal property tax. Well, if we went back to the beginning of, let's say, 2001, there was a time when we'd get better than $6 million, and persistently anywhere from $5 to $6 million over from 2001 to 2010. Thanks to efforts by the state, we now get about $200,000 a year. So that's something that will not come back. You're not going to grow in that number. Let's look at property taxes themselves on the real property taxes. That's on page 7. You'll see that there certainly has been a moderating influence on real property tax collections. If you look at the chart, every third year you will see a little white asterisk, and that tells you that that's the year that we should be seeing more money because of the revaluations that took place in the previous year. And if you look at 2015, our current year, rather than get a burst in revenue, we actually got a reduction in revenue, and that's because overall, throughout the city, overall, the revaluations went down. Okay, you'll see in those middle years where, following the white asterisk, where typically revenues would increase, and increase nicely. Let me go to this revenue source that we call shared revenues. That's simply a title of revenues, tax revenues that are levied by other levels of government but shared with cities and counties and so forth. And I'll get into a little bit of detail of each one of them. Local government funds, you'll see that from the year 2010 to the year 2015, and these are very accurate numbers at that date, we're getting about half of what we once got. We dropped from $40 million to $21 million. Estate taxes. I can tell you estate taxes over the past many years averaged about $9.5 million a year. We'll look at some disturbing news there. Casinos, we'll give a little more detail on that also. Liquor taxes are pretty steady. Appears that we haven't given up our drinking habits. Those taxes remain pretty much the same. If we look at those local government funds on page 9, you'll see again, if we go back to the beginning of 2001, $51 million we got in local government monies. Well, look at what we're looking at now. 2015, about $21 million. And again, you don't grow out of those things. There'll be modest growth. I'm looking for modest growth. But not immediately, not immediately. That was a major, major loss of revenue there.
So, Mr. Dre, that's a $30
ma'am.
that's a $30 million loss.
Yes,
our
ma'am, it
city.
is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. If I can go to the next page, page 10, which is terribly, terribly disturbing. Those are estate taxes. You can see over that bar chart of all the years, it would average about $9.5 million a year. In 2012, we actually got $15 million from estate taxes. Estate taxes were eliminated effective 12/31/12. So any decedents after 12/31 of 2012 had no Ohio estate tax to pay. So 2 or 3 years ago, compared to getting $15 million, in 2014, we got $700,000. And yes, in 2015, that is a negative. We actually had to give some back. So that is another source of revenue, a dramatic. It's very disturbing because, again, that's something you won't grow out of. Another item that I call shared revenues, the so often talked about casino taxes. Our casino taxes, we started receiving them in 2012. Looking at 2015 and 2016, I really do not expect any growth patterns in casino taxes. The City of Columbus, our general fund, we might benefit maybe an additional $200,000 compared to last year. But that's because the West Side Community Fund, we have now funded that. We were responsible to fund it for $2.5 million, and we have now done that. So that's about $250,000 we paid this year, which we will not have to pay next year. If I can go to page 12 and indicate what we call pro rata charges, there is an ordinance that allows us to take 4.5% of revenues from all of your enterprise funds and some other funds, water, sewer, and so forth. That's really not a revenue source. It's a reallocation of costs is what it is, okay? So you can see it's fairly steady now, about $29 million range. Let me briefly mention fines. You'll see that fines have tapered off somewhat. I look at them to be relatively steady in 2015 and 16. If you look at $18.6 million, about $12 million of that is from the courts, and about $6.5 to $6.6 million or so is from parking fines, parking tickets, okay? Significant piece of revenue. Director Speaks mentioned EMS fees, and I pay great compliments to those who assist us in that matter. You'll see that I believe EMS fees have pretty much peaked now. I'm looking at about $15.5 million this year, which is the highest year in its history, 2003 being the first year of collections. And I'm looking at about the same number, $15.5 million for next year. I have a brief couple of pages of other data just to show you how the city is staffed with the, in my view, marvelous, wonderful, dedicated employees that we all have. And you'll see comparisons of numbers of employees before the income tax increase and what it is today, okay? A few fewer police, a few more fire. The increase is primarily in part-time civilian employees, but I provide that data to you. I also, for your little bit of history, if and when you are questioned on water and sewer rates, which you just recently enacted the increases for 2016, there's a schedule showing what those rates, how they have increased. Believe it or not, there have been years when there were no increases since the year 2001 until the current time. One other bit of data I'd like to share with you, the last page, being unemployment rates. We get this data from the Ohio Bureau of Jobs and Family Services, If you looked at the unemployment rate in Franklin County at the end of October, 3.6%. You have to go back to 2001 before you can find an unemployment rate lower than that. 14 years now, this is the lowest unemployment rate. If you were to look at the years 2000 and 2001, we all got spoiled with those unemployment rates, 2 point this, 2 point that, and so forth. But now we're at an excellent move on the unemployment charts. That's the extent of the data that I have for you. I want to say to you that you heard Mr. Rakoski talk about a carryover. Carryovers result from two components. One, if revenues come in greater than what your auditor estimates, that's one component. The other component is if the administration and all of us don't spend as much as we originally budgeted. And I really seriously give my compliments to Mr. Rakoski and his team because they've done a marvelous job of controlling costs throughout the year. That's all I have for you. I think, quite frankly, we should be very, very happy to be living in the city of Columbus, Ohio. I'm very proud of it. I think you got a great team around here. Any questions? I'll do my best.
Mr. Dorian, as always, thank you for presenting information regarding our revenue. And certainly, I know you look at the revenue every single day to see where the city happens to be. But just really appreciate you always educating not only us, but also the listening and viewing audience as to the general fund revenue for the city. Your comments regarding the importance of the carryover, again, I am in total agreement with you and just appreciate the work that, as I said, the directors have done. But I also appreciate just you and how you estimate the funds and, making sure that being very conservative, that I think has been critically important to the success of our city. I also appreciate that the individuals who decided that we would become an income tax city was critically important to our overall growth. When I talk to my colleagues across the country through the National League of Cities, most of those cities don't have an income tax. And so, which I call a progressive tax, because if people are working, they're paying taxes for the services. Many of them have recessive taxes, and so they're not able to be in the position that we're in. And that's and because of having the income tax and being wise to put 25 cents of every dollar to be able to pay for our capital expenses, that's why, we ask, why do we continue to get that AAA bond rating? Those are all components as to why we continue to get that, as well as the leadership of the city. And critically important to that is you. When you sit on those calls and listen to the rating agencies, certainly by you being here for so many years and managing our dollars is critically important to getting that, as well as Director Rakowski. They always talk about the management team, and where the management team, we've had a mayor for 16 years. We have a council that, as well as the two of your areas, certainly have been important to us continuing to get that. So I appreciate this every time I have the opportunity to listen to you and you to share the inner workings of our city in terms of its resources, and just appreciate you. And again, I certainly appreciate Director Rakowski and the administration, but it's critically important to know that that's why we get that AAA bond rating. And if it weren't for you and others, I get concerned about that rating, because there's a management score that they look at, and our conservatism has helped us to continue to be the city that we happen to be.
I'd like to mention, since you brought up the subject of bonds, it was last March or April, I asked you to pass a bond ordinance approving some refundings of some sanitary sewer bonds. And I often say, if the arithmetic doesn't work at the time, we don't do it. Well, the arithmetic is now working, and next Monday night, I expect to be able to report to you that we'll price a bond refunding for sanitary sewers on Thursday of this week. And I feel pretty confident that I'll report to you we saved several $1 million. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dorian. And I'm going to add one last comment. I don't know if Director Shoney is here, but also realizing that our revenue basically is coming from income tax, and how important it is for the work that you do, Director Shoney, and ensuring that we attract and retain jobs in the city of Columbus, because that's really our bread and butter to be able to provide services. So thank you. And with that, any questions to Mr. Dorian? Anyone? No? Okay. So with that, we're going to move into the presentation from Director Rakowski, and he was going to provide us with a perspective on the 2016 budget. Director Rakowski, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Tyson, Councilman Harden, Councilwoman Page. On behalf of the administration, I'm again obviously very pleased to present the mayor's recommended 2016 operating budget. In the format, as we did over the last few years, I'll present a general overview of the budget, followed by the more specific comments of the directors that are here on their respective department budgets. This is a $1.7 billion operating budget, of which slightly less than half, 48.8%, which is pretty much in line with where it was in the 2015 budget, or $834.8 million is for the operations of the general fund. And the majority of my remarks are going to be related to the general fund operating budget. This budget, the operating budget, funds all the personnel, goods, and services that are necessary to deliver essential services to all of our citizens. Approximately 75% of the general fund budget funds personnel. It's a personnel-driven budget. The 2016 general fund budget is 2.6% higher than the 2015 original budget as amended, and it's 4.9% higher than the 2015 third quarter projection. Again, that reflecting the fact that we're spending about $18 million less than the current appropriation. This is clearly a continuation budget, and again, it focuses, as it always does, on the safety of our citizens, quality of life in our neighborhoods, continued fiscal responsibility, and the future of the young people of our city. Safety has always been and continues to be the mayor's top priority, with $557.1 million in general fund resources devoted to the Department of Public Safety. If we look at all funds, it's over $558 million that are dedicated to the Department of Public Safety. This funding level represents almost 67% of all general fund resources dedicated to operations. The budget includes $3.8 million to hire 70 new police officers and 40 new firefighters to offset retirements and maintain strength levels in our uniformed ranks. The mayor has also proposed a continuation of the applications for Pride, Purpose, and Success program, the APPS program within the budget of Recreation and Parks Department. We'll also continue to invest in the Community Summer Initiative to target policing in areas and months where crime is most prevalent. And we have also, again, proposed resources to provide grants for neighborhood-based anti-violence and crime prevention initiatives. This budget continues the direct investment in the education of our children. The proposed 2016 budget allocates $6.3 million for the Department of Education. And this will allow them to continue the efforts and to leverage additional dollars from federal, state, and private sector sources. The funds are used to increase access to quality early childhood education and to improve the schools here within the city of Columbus. The mayor also believes that all residents deserve to live in neighborhoods that are diverse, safe, vibrant, and prosperous. This budget includes funding for the city's 29 recreation centers, 8 swimming pools, 3 spray grounds, all so that our children are guaranteed to have safe places to exercise, play, and learn. We also propose to maintain the weed abatement program and the enhanced code enforcement efforts that were initiated through the PACE team program and the development department. And this all continues the hard work of removing blight from the city. The 2016 budget also includes over $1 million for weed abatement services. Next Gen Corporation, Columbus Next Gen Corporation, again receives funding. These dollars are used to coordinate public and private resources and development efforts in some of the most economically challenged neighborhoods in the city. And the city's very successful and embraced curbside recycling and yard waste program is fully funded in all city neighborhoods. And though all municipalities in Ohio face increasing fiscal challenges, as we just heard from the city auditor, we also understand that many in the community are in need of support. It's why we continue our commitment to help those residents who rely on vital community services to meet their basic needs. Funding levels for the Community Shelter Board, our other social service partners, are all continued in 2016. We also continue our partnership with the Primary One Health, which is formerly the Columbus Neighborhood Health Centers, so that our most vulnerable citizens have access to much-needed health care services. The budget also provides funding to continue and expand implementation of the recommendations of the Greater Columbus Infant Mortality Task Force. And Dr. Long, I know, will be speaking towards the expansion of that program within her budget. As the auditor made very, very clear in his presentation, cuts from the state have resulted in an ever-increasing reliance on the income tax to support important general fund activities. Therefore, the health and stability of the general fund relies on the retention and creation of jobs within the city of Columbus. These job creation efforts continue in 2016. Partnerships with Columbus 2020, Rev 1 Ventures, formerly Tech Columbus, CoWIC, all will continue in the proposed 2016 budget. These are the efforts that allow the city to attract and retain jobs, but also prepare and train residents to fill the jobs that are available. The collective commitment to the city's long-term fiscal health that's been shown by the mayor and the city council and all of the directors that are sitting here in council chambers has again resulted in the maintenance of our AAA bond rating. We continue to be the only city of our size to receive a stable fiscal outlook and the highest rating from all three rating agencies. And this is important, obviously, because it allows us to borrow money more cheaply, but it also, the more important, is a reflection on the fiscal management of the city and the way that we take care of our business here at the City of Columbus. The mayor's proposed 2016 budget continues and sustains the pledge to replenish our rainy day fund. The savings that we spoke about earlier of almost $18 million in 2015, all due to reduced spending, will allow us to deposit an additional $2.2 million into the fund in 2016. This deposit will result of a balance of just under $70 million by the end of 2016, which keeps us right on schedule to meet the goal of a $75 million balance in the fund by the end of 2018. Meeting this commitment not only ensures the financial stability for the city well into the future, but it also allows us to prepare for that inevitable economic downturn that we'll once again, unfortunately, suffer, and it allows us to keep those services, providing those services to the citizens. And I do want to point out, because I'm very proud of this, and I'm proud of all the other folks here that work for the mayor, when you look at the table that we have and the chart that we have up that talks about our general fund savings, since 2001, we've spent $187 million less than what we've had appropriated at the beginning of the year. And that's a testament to all of the directors and all of the sacrifices and good work that they do throughout the year. As you're aware, the final report of the City of Columbus's Accountability Committee was issued in March of 2013. We now project that we will achieve reform savings of nearly $260 million over the period of 2009 to 2019. This represents more than twice the savings that we originally promised when those goals were set forth in our 10-year reform and efficiency plan. The commitment to reducing costs through these efficiencies in operations and the pension and budget reforms, unfortunately, will have to continue. As you saw in the auditor's presentation, all these sources of revenue that have been taken away from us, we're not going to grow our way out of that. The only way that we can deal with those is by continuing to reduce costs and increase efficiencies and reforms. That'll allow us to maintain our current city service levels into the future. We've talked many times about green initiatives, and those are great for the environment, and they reduce the city's carbon footprint, but they also reduce our operating costs and produce real savings. The compressed natural gas that many of our vehicles are running on and our green and high-efficiency buildings lower our energy costs, as well as doing the good things about reducing carbon emissions. So we need to continue to pursue all the goals that were identified in that original report, and then always continue to seek new opportunities for savings where they exist. We continue to maintain our financial position, but our future, unfortunately, is always uncertain. As such, collectively, we must remain committed to fiscal responsibility and continue our efforts in reforming the manner in which we operate the city. I'd like to now quickly address my own department's budget. As it's been over the past few years, our proposed budget for the Finance and Management Department is really a maintenance continuation budget. The budget, including all funds, is $130.7 million. It supports 274 full-time and 19 part-time positions. The general fund represents slightly over $73.5 million of that total. Facilities management is the largest general fund division within our budget, and it has a budget that totals $16.4 million, including over $6 million for utility expenses. The fleet management division's proposed budget is $36.4 million. It supports 133 full-time and 2 part-time positions. This is an internal service division. It bills other departments for the services it provides, and we all know what a great job Kelly Regan and his team have done over there in regard to managing the city's fleet, greening the city's fleet, and becoming the top fleet in the country. They provide repair and maintenance for over 3,100 on-road and 3,200 off-road pieces of mechanized equipment that are essential to delivery of city services, including fire apparatus and medics, our police cruisers, our vehicles that are driven by our code enforcement officers, all of the city's plows that go out and clear the streets during winter storms. I've also pointed out that my budget in the department seems large, but our budget includes significant general fund resources that, although they're budgeted within my department, they benefit other general fund agencies. And in 2016, this includes $18.4 million for the citywide technology billings that allow the Department of Technology to provide their services to the general fund departments, $21 million for economic development incentive payments, and $15.9 million in hotel motel tax fund distributions that go to our partners out in the community like Experience Columbus, our social service organizations, our cultural arts partners, and $1.4 million for the public defender's contract. That finance citywide account is budgeted at $28.4 million, and it includes those important deposits of $2.2 million and $2.3 million into the rainy day fund and 27th pay period fund, respectively. That concludes my testimony, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director Rakowski. This kind of is overall, but do you see that next year that the strategies that we've used this year we'll be continuing to do to be able to be efficient, continue to be efficient, and continue to have cost savings for the city of Columbus?
I'm confident that the new administration and the directors that are going to be here working for the new administration are going to continue all of the good things that we've been able to do over the past 16 years, and that includes continuing to push for reforms and efficiencies, as well as managing their budgets. It's clear that we have to manage our budgets, and we cannot spend everything that's appropriated to us in any given year. If we were to do that, then we are going to have a hole in the budget. So we need to continue those efforts, but I have all the confidence in the world that the new administration under Mayor-elect Ginther and City Council's help in managing that budget is going to put us in a very good position when we're at this time next year. I will say that, as these, cuts that we've seen from the state, if they continue, it's going to be difficult. It's going to make it even more difficult to continue to balance the budget if there are more of these cuts that come down the line. I think we can continue to sustain the budget as long as we don't take any more hits. If we take more hits, it's going to become very difficult to do that.
Thank you, Director. Also, you can speak on, I know that your fuel budget for next year is $10 million. It's a decrease of $1 million from this year, and you wanted to really talk about how you're able to achieve that.
Chair Tyson and members of council, there are two reasons for that. One is obviously we continue to convert more of the city's fleet over to compressed natural gas, and that's a much cheaper source of fuel for our vehicles. And the other is we've had a very good year in regard to the price of fuel. So a lot of those savings that were generated in all the big departments in their fleet budgets are due to the fact that we have savings in the current year in fuel, and that's allowed us to have a little more conservative projection for next year in regard to the cost of fuel. But as you know, the turmoil that goes on across the world and in the Middle East, the changes in the price of fuel, as we all know when we go, the talk around the office, within a couple of days, your price of fuel goes from $2.60 to over $3 a gallon. The volatility is very real in regard to fuel. So I hope that we continue on a good path and that fuel prices stay stable, but we take a pretty conservative approach to that, knowing that the amount of fuel that we consume and the types of vehicles and the services that those vehicles provide are just integral to the operations of the city. So we do take a fairly conservative approach and make sure that we have a little bit of cushion there.
Thank you, and I see that we're on target for construction of a new CNG fueling station on Georgesville Road in 2016. Is that correct?
That's correct, and we're excited about that project. That, along with the partnership that we have with CODA on McKinley Avenue, will pretty much set us on the path to addressing all of the operational and kind of the logistical needs of the city in regard to having fueling stations in all the right places in areas and sectors within the city. I don't see the need to build another station for a while down the road now. We should be set, especially with the partnership that we have with CODA.
Thank you, and I certainly do appreciate you and the directors who are open to having CNG vehicles, and especially I know public service has been using them, and obviously some of our largest vehicles being largest vehicles that consume most of our gas, to be able to purchase those CNG vehicles saves us a lot of money. So thank you to the directors who have been open to having CNG vehicles, and appreciate that. Director Rakowski, again, thank you for your presentation today. It's always a pleasure to work with you, and I just really appreciate you and your whole team. I see Adam back there, and again, thank you. Our next presentation will be from the Department of Development, Director Stephen Shoney.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of council, Councilmember Page. Thank you for the opportunity, and also thank you for your earlier compliment and comment in terms of our role as a revenue-generating agency. And I had some prepared remarks. Director Rakowski already said most of them, which is also a good symbol of how the city is managed, that you have the finance director and the development director on the same page. In many places, that isn't the case. But I think here we look at our jobs together as building the city. The Department of Development's budget for next year is a essentially flat budget. The department's budget as a whole is about $32.4 million. About 80% of that is general fund, $25.5 million out of the general fund, about $6.9 million out of community development block grant. Additionally, through some of the shared services accounts that Director Rakowski mentioned, we have the Emergency Human Services funding as well as the funding for the city's incentive programs. We work very closely with those. Underneath that budget, there are a few things that I would like to highlight. Number one, we are fully funding this year our Celebrate One planner. That is a person in our planning department who is dedicated solely to our Celebrate One neighborhoods. She really is doing a fantastic job of coordinating all that we do to attack those things that are really at the root of infant mortality and poverty within our city. So she is working hard to bring all of our services within the Department of Development and really from around the city to address those root causes of poverty. She's working very closely with Dr. Long's team at the Department of Health and making sure that we bring all those things together.
Director Shoney, that's really an important position.
Yes.
And even though I know it's really tied right now to infant mortality, as you really delve into this person, and I know delves into that issue, that's the same issue for people who are in poverty. And so I'm excited that we have this individual, but that individual, as we will see, I think that I know we're going to be successful with this. As we're successful with this, we'll be successful in those other communities to really understand, the issues of the individuals that are living there and how we as a city can help to address those issues. So I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, both that and actually the downtown development manager position, which we put in place a few years ago, have taught us a couple lessons about how we need to really approach neighborhoods, whether they're growing neighborhoods or impoverished neighborhoods, and make sure that we have someone who is waking up every day and thinking about that neighborhood and how we coordinate services at a very deep level in each of those neighborhoods. So that's something that we're really going to look at. How do we take that lesson throughout the city, wherever we can, and appropriately manage budgets. Social services, which I know, Madam Chair, is a major focus of yours and something we talk about frequently. Our funding for our social service contracts is flat this year at $5 million. We also are flat funding the Community Shelter Board and the Rebuilding Lives program at $5.2 million. That is the same that was in the administration's budget last year. One change for this year is we are shifting with the cooperation and really some leadership from Councilmember Hardin. We are shifting the small business liaison position from Building and Zoning Services into the Economic Development Division within the Department of Development. That will allow us to better coordinate some of our small business services and make sure that we're bringing, again, that holistic approach to that element of our business. And really want to thank Director Messer for his partnership in making, first of all, getting that program off the ground and then helping us shift that over. Director Rakowski, I'm sorry, was there a question there before I keep moving?
I was going to ask you a question about that, and you've already answered it. Thank you.
Pause. Did you want me to keep going? Okay. And then the final thing I wanted to say before really pausing for questions was we do have some key partnerships. Really our job at the Department of Development is to sell all the great work that everyone in the city does. We can't sell our community to businesses and new residents without great roads, without safe streets, without water and sewer, without a city where people feel that everyone is included. But part of that selling is really contracting with some key partners. So we are continuing our contracts with Columbus 2020, Tech Columbus, Columbus Next Gen, Partners Achieving Community Transformation on the west side. We do have an increase in there that is reflective of our commitments that we've made in partnership with the Ohio State University and Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority. So that's going from a $200,000 a year commitment to a $250,000 a year commitment. We are continuing our partnerships with Capital Crossroads, our Young Professionals program. We are increasing our partnership, our commitment to Columbus Sister Cities. That is a reflection of the fact that we're actually going to be reducing some of our in-kind services. They're going to be moving out of existing city space and moving into their own space. So we need to make up some of that gap. And then we're continuing with our payments to the Morse Road SID consistent with commitments we made when that was set up. Those are all of the things that I wanted to highlight. I will be happy to pause and take any questions you might have.
No, I would just say that I am, even though I'm excited about the commitment to support sister cities, I I know they're going to be moving to a new space, need some additional funds, but overall, I just think that when you have a organization that we're supporting and they have now 10 cities that they are responsible for, after being on one of the trips and working with them, it's it's really unrealistic to have for $75,000, their budget, I'm just not making a pitch for this, but their budget to be able to effectively have sister city partnerships with 10 cities is difficult to do on a very limited budget.
Yeah.
But, so I appreciate that you've given more dollars for that purpose, and hopefully they'll be able to find space that maybe someone else would in-kind some space to them or do something so that they can use those dollars to be able to effectively run those programs. But thank you for that. I appreciate that we're still working with Columbus 2020 and Rev 1. That's very important to, as I just said earlier, to the economic development efforts of our city. As everyone has heard, that is so key to our budget. And if we're not attracting and retaining jobs in our city, as well as working with the rest of the departments to have a great city for businesses to want to come and stay in, we will not be able to have the dollars to be able to provide the services. So you play a key role in ensuring that we have those dollars in our community. And I thank you for your budget and appreciate that we're still out giving giving about $10.2 million really to social service programs, because the Community Shelter Board really is a social service program. And continue to make our commitment to those individuals so that they can people can move forward in their lives and continue to grow in Columbus. Councilman Page, do you have any questions for Director Shoney? Thank you for your work. And I know these hearings that tonight are really kind of giving us the overview, because most of you as directors I know are going to have separate hearings and delve more in depth into your budgets. But again, so for the listening and viewing audience, there will be more hearings, and you'll be able to, and there'll be public comment at those hearings. There's no public comment at this particular hearing as an overview. So thank you, Director Shoney. The next is the Education Department and Director Rhonda Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Tyson, members of council, Councilmember Page. Thank you for the opportunity to present the 2016 proposed budget for the Education Department. Our total proposed appropriation is $6,307,329. This is an increase of $161,932, or 2.6% from 2015. The majority of our funding, $4.7 million, is designated for our pre-K expansion program, Early Start Columbus. Through Early Start Columbus, the city provides direct support to high-quality pre-K providers. We have provided a high-quality pre-kindergarten education to more than 1,000 four-year-olds over the last 2 school years. The proposed amount for pre-K education is unchanged from last year and represents 75% of our overall budget. $700,000 of our budget will be used to support Future Ready Columbus. The creation of a public-private partnership to support education in Columbus was one of the 55 recommendations from the Columbus Education Commission, and both you and I, Chair Tyson, had an opportunity to serve on that commission, and so this part of the budget goes to support Future Ready Columbus. We've already begun to make a collective impact on education in Columbus, focusing first on early childhood education, community engagement, public policy, advocacy, and leadership. And the department's after-school grant program appropriation is $354,000. This is going to allow us to serve about 2,200 Columbus kids in high-quality after-school programs this year. This amount also remains unchanged from last year. And lastly, $508,912 will support the administration of our department. As you can see, we are a small department. We don't make the pie chart, we know that we have an aggressive goal and we have an important responsibility in the education of children in the city of Columbus. So thank you again, and I look forward to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Director. Even though you're not on the pie chart, you play a critical role in the future of our community, so we thank you for that. Could you share a little bit more for our viewing and listening audience about the Future Ready initiative?
Thank you, Chair Tyson and Councilmember Page. The Columbus Education Commission was convened in 2013 to examine the challenges facing children in Columbus City Schools. And the commission had 55 recommendations, and one of those was to create a public-private partnership to help support children in Columbus, not just children in Columbus City Schools, but children who live in the city of Columbus. We started that work with 3 councils. And the reason we started with 3 is there's much work that's already going on in the community around early childhood education. We've been doing that work in our department and here at the city. You know that it's been a focus throughout the country. How do we get our 3 and 4-year-olds educated and getting them ready for kindergarten? So we stood up 3 councils, the Early Childhood Council, the Community Engagement Council, and the Public Policy Council to do that work. We also folded in the work of 3 organizations in town that were doing work around education, and that is Learn for Life, Learning Circle, and Kids Ohio. So those 3 organizations are now housed together. Their space is at 1907 Leonard Avenue. So those 3 organizations are coming together to support education as not just one education, but they're affiliates or subsidiaries, but to do the work together instead of working in silos, that we all come together, whether we're the public sector or the private sector. So we are one of the public sector partners in Future Ready Columbus. The county will also is also one of our partners.
Thank you. Any questions, Councilman Page? Thank you. All right, thank you, Director Johnson. Our next presenter would be from Public Health and Dr. Teresa Long.
Good evening, Council Chair Tyson and Councilmember Page. Thank you so much for the opportunity to highlight the Columbus Public Health's proposed 2016 budget. We do make the pie chart, but barely. Our total budget being proposed for 2016, is $30,576,416, which supports 240 full-time equivalents. As you know firsthand, our Columbus Public Health team has worked hard to keep our community healthy and safe during the many complicated challenges that have been faced by residents in 2015. No one could have predicted the Ebola outbreak in West Africa and its impact on our resources and capacity right here in Columbus. Even in the absence of a local actual case, we have monitored nearly 500 travelers on a daily basis. We have also managed 17 of these travelers that were hospitalized and needed further very careful evaluation by our local hospitals, requiring collaboration with many partners, including the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, the state of Ohio, every local hospital system, our Columbus Fire and EMS systems, and of course many others. So our work in this area has been extensive, and our monitoring response came with a price tag of nearly $500,000. And that cost is on top of our other public health challenges, which do include, as has been mentioned, our record high infant mortality and honestly numerous outbreaks, including a significant syphilis outbreak that we will continue to work on for a long time to curb because of its complicated nature. I believe our commitment to protect health and improve lives in our community is more important than ever, and for us, obviously, it's our #1 priority. The proposed 2016 budget allows for continued provision of public health services that are mandated, as well as priority programs that the Board of Health deems minimally essential to meet Ohio's public health standards. We also will continue to provide services and programs that further protect health and improve lives. Additionally, we continue to focus on significant efforts to reduce infant mortality and our community's infant mortality rate through Celebrate One, which is responsible, as you've heard and know, for the implementation of the Greater Columbus Infant Mortality Task Force's recommendations. We also will continue to lead the work of the Southside Network for Healthy Families and Babies, both critically important projects given the number of infants that do die before their first birthday in Columbus. Likewise, our budget prioritizes and proposes maintenance in clinical programming. Our primary care service contract, which was already mentioned with Primary One Health Centers, is budgeted to receive $4,799,110, the same amount as budgeted in 2015. Additionally, both Access Health Columbus, or now known as the Healthcare Collaborative of Greater Columbus, and Community Garden contracts will continue to receive level funding. Related to two important expansion initiatives that have been mentioned, the proposed budget does reflect an increase of 7 full-time equivalents, which is predominantly related to our new harm reduction initiative. The first proposed expansion addresses a developing crisis in our community. As you are aware of, the opiate epidemic, both plaguing Columbus and communities across our state, is not going away anytime soon. As a community, we need to look at the systems we have in place, as well as increase awareness and treat this opiate addiction as the chronic, relapsing, often devastating disease that it is, as we provide adequate treatment and support. Columbus Public Health will be partnering with a local service agency as we launch a comprehensive harm reduction program that includes, well, let me start here. That includes intervention with treatment and counseling for addiction. It includes testing for hepatitis C, hepatitis B, and HIV, naloxone or Narcan distribution to family members and loved ones, which is an opiate antidote, and syringe access, a critical first step in addressing this crisis in our community. The new and this initial project will be called Safe Point and will have a soft launch in January. We must act now or the consequences of this tragedy will be even greater. The second expansion initiative is part of a long-term commitment to the well-being of children in our community. Columbus has an infant mortality rate that is higher than 37 of the 50 most populous states in our country, and our African-American babies are dying at 2.5 times the rate of the white infants in our community. In order to be effective in this work in the neighborhoods worst affected by this, or most affected by this crisis, we are looking to place community or neighborhood leads that will be the front line of neighborhood work and connectivity, who are trusted members or have a close understanding of residents within the initial targeted neighborhoods, who will continue the committed work in each initial neighborhood and provide facilitation for the ongoing both community meetings, to neighborhood-driven interventions, again, providing direct connectivity with the city's planner, the other community members that want to come and work on this initiative with us. So again, connectivity for all of the partner agencies who are willing to bring services and support to improve the quality of life in neighborhoods. Let me assure you that your investment in our infrastructure and services means better public health protection is available to our residents, enabling our ability to meet the diverse needs of our community. We will continue to operate with high efficiency and effectiveness to protect the health and improve the lives of all of our residents. As always, we appreciate the support and guidance of Columbus City Council through this process and all year long. I would be happy to respond to any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Long. I don't really have any questions. I just appreciate that that the administration has put an expansion in your budget to deal with infant mortality, and appreciate that all the directors are really helping to work on this issue, and then also the opiate epidemic in our community. And so just look forward to the opening of the Safe Point in January to be able to deal with the opiate epidemic, and then just the ongoing efforts of how we are ensuring that more babies are living past their first birthday. And I know that is such a priority for you. So I don't have any other questions. I want to thank you for always, you and your team, for reacting to issues as they come, as you just mentioned the Ebola, and how you had to quickly get engaged around that. I know this year you dealt with the issue with water in our community. There's been a lot that you've been dealing with, and your department has handled it quite well. So just appreciate you and thank you for your work. And again, this is a continuation budget, except for the focusing now on infant mortality and the new opiate epidemic, the Safe Point program. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. All right. The next presenter will be Public Safety, Director George Speaks, and I bet we can find his information on that pie chart, can't we?
Chairperson Tyson, Councilmember Page, I am honored to be here to present our proposed 2016 Public Safety General Fund budget. Public Safety manages the divisions of police, fire, support services, and the Safety Director's Office. We are very appreciative of this proposed budget, as public safety continues to be the administration's and this council's top priority. The proposed budget totals $558 million, which represents a 2.5% over the 2015 projected expenditures. The budget allocates $313 million for police, $231 million for fire, $6.5 million for support services, and $6.8 million for safety administration. With these funds, the department will continue to provide outstanding public safety services from the internationally accredited divisions of both police and fire. With respect to our complement of personnel, in 2016, we estimate approximately 70 officers will retire or separate from the Division of Police, and 40 firefighters will likewise retire. These retirements will be replenished with an equal number of police officer and firefighter replacements, with classes in police in both July and December of next year, and a class of firefighters in June. Let me underscore that unlike many communities in Ohio and across our nation, Columbus continues to maintain staffing for its police and firefighter positions. With respect to other significant funding items in our budget, our jail contract with Franklin County is funded at $3.85 million. Our EMS billing contract cost $1.8 million, but as Auditor Dorian stated earlier, will generate a little in excess of $15 million this year and next. We will continue the hiring of 911 call takers for our police call center. We are funding our community crime patrol, our great partners in the community, at $375,000. $65,000 is set aside for recruitment of minority police officers and firefighters. Crime Stoppers is again funded at $33,000. And we again fund in the amount of $40,000 the continuation of the Mayor's Coalition for a Nonviolent Columbus. In our Support Services Division, which is responsible for the repair, and maintenance, and replacement of more than $30 million in communications equipment. That includes our radios, our cruiser cameras, and other mobile devices. That division issues various licenses and ensures consumer protection by certifying the accuracy of such things as fuel pumps, grocery scales, and scanners. A significant public safety services that division provides, and again, we believe that the proposed budget more than adequately funds that important measure. In closing, public safety appreciates the continued generous support of the Mayor, Council, and Mr. Dorian. And again, unlike many political subdivisions both in Ohio and throughout our nation, we are fortunate to maintain our core services of public safety, and we continue to hire police officers and firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Speaks. I have listed as one of your strategic priorities for 2016 what is the implementation of strategies related to the reduction of gun violence and gang activity. And can you tell me how the Department of Public Safety will use the 2016 budget allocations to achieve these objectives?
Would love to. And first, let me put this in context. As you know, over the last 10 years, type 1 or violent crime, which is defined by the FBI as rape, homicide, aggravated assault, and robbery, that has declined in our city by 29.5% over 10 years. At the same time, let me underscore that our population has increased almost 10%. So that's a wonderful dichotomy. Part of the reason is we focus on gang crime, and we are undergoing a number of initiatives. We have the best gang unit in the state, and absolutely one of the best in the nation. We are working on several new initiatives, for example, implementing the David Kennedy ceasefire model here in Columbus. We are working with both the federal prosecutor's office, the county prosecutor's office, Franklin County courts, and probation. We continue to work on that. We hope to bring that to fruition in the spring of next year. Likewise, we continue to work with our APPS program through our Department of Recreation, and that has been a tremendous program providing folks with both outlets and resources such as job resources, education resources, and education and such things as de-escalation in our community. So we will continue to work on these things to further reduce crime in our wonderful city.
Thank you for your presentation, and certainly congratulations on the work of public safety. As you just quoted those numbers to us, that's pretty amazing numbers. So congratulations to you and your department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Okay, the next presenter will be Public Service, Director Tracy Davies.
Chairwoman Tyson, Councilmember Page, thank you for the opportunity to present the highlights of the proposed 2016 budget for the Department of Public Service. Public Service is comprised of the Director's Office, which includes the 311 Customer Service Center and 4 divisions, including Design and Construction, Infrastructure Management, Traffic Management, and Refuse Collection. In 2016, we have proposed funding of $106 million for the department. This will fund approximately 822 full and part-time personnel that provide some of the most basic city services, including refuse collection, maintaining and improving our roadways, fixing potholes, and plowing snow, the installation and maintenance of traffic signals, signage, pavement markings to promote the safety of the general public, publicly managed parking, and everything making this Columbus a safer city for pedestrians and bicyclists. Our proposed 2016 operating budget represents a 4.5% increase in funding over the 2015 operating budget. It can be attributed to across-the-board increases in associated benefits, as well as increase in fleet costs, as well as the budget provides for additional staffing at the city's 311 Customer Service Center. In the Division of Refuse Collection, we will continue the city's residential recycling program to more than 201,000 households. The recycling program has been a great success. Since the program's start in June of 2012 through October 31st of this year, residents have recycled more than 103,000 tons of materials, saving the city over $5.7 million in tipping fees at the county landfill. Finally, our snow warriors are ready for winter despite today's weather. We think that winter will eventually get here. Snow operations are funded through the Street Construction Maintenance and Repair Fund. We begin the 2015-2016 winter season with approximately 114 equipment operators plus more than 200 additional city employees cross-trained to drive snowplow trucks in extreme winter weather conditions. We have 140 pieces of winter weather equipment, and we currently have more than 26,000 tons of salt on hand with the additional purchasing capacity of over 11,000 tons of salt. This winter, residents can once again go online and use our Warrior Watch website to see what streets citywide have been treated in the previous 72 hours and the priority level of their street, whether they're a priority 1, 2, or 3 for plowing. The men and women of the Department of Public Service appreciate the financial support and direction received from City Council. This allows the department to continue our mission of meeting our strategic priorities and providing the most efficient and effective services possible to the citizens of Columbus. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I'm going to compliment you on, we'll compliment the refuge collection program by saving us dollars for the city to be used for other purposes, so congratulations on that. I also want to ask you, I know that our weekly collections have, I think have exceeded your goals. And can you tell me any of the factors that may be contributing to your above goal expectations?
Chairwoman Tyson, member of councils, we just continue to work on our goals on a daily basis in collaboration with the mayor's office about going out and educating the public and trying to meet those goals and exceed the goals, particularly in the area of recycling, so that we can increase those numbers this year. In fact, we're going to continue to target areas that have lower recycling numbers so that we can see a higher recycling rate. We'll do that through direct contact.
Thank you. And can you talk to me a little bit about the 311 Customer Call Center? How are things going there? And just kind of share some information regarding, I know you're going to have, I think, a couple additional people in your department, and maybe you want to just share the need for those additional staff.
Yes, Chairwoman Tyson, members of council. Our call volume continues to go up at the 311 call center, and our goal is to answer those calls in 20 seconds or less. And as we see those numbers go up, we have requested additional staffing, and with the help of Director Rakoski, we were able to get some additional positions. We call them our frontline staff members who have the first contact with our citizens. We also encourage people, as Director Cavan would say, to use My Columbus app so that they can file their 311 requests directly online. But we're excited to get additional frontline staffing so that, that our citizens won't have to wait any extended time on the phones.
Thank you very much. Our next presenter will be from the Recreation and Parks and Director Tony Collins. Hi.
Good evening, Chairperson Tyson, Councilmember Page. Appreciate the opportunity to review our 2016 budget as submitted. 2015 saw a continuation of success for our department, our programs and activities. Our focus on health and wellness, conservation, and social equity produced a tremendous list of accomplishments for the citizens of Columbus that helped shape our 2016 proposal. 2015 was a great year downtown, with thousands enjoying the Scioto Mile, as demonstrated Friday night by the more than 20,000 people that attended our grand illumination Friday. The addition of 32 more acres of parkland has been a tremendous success. We strengthened the sustainability and future success of our programs that reach our community's most vulnerable youth and families by creating the Youth and Family Development Division in 2015. The division, in addition to our apps program and CAP Kids, rolled out a food truck this summer to help with our summer food service programming and provided over 700,000 meals in 2015. Our capital commitments were met and exceeded as planned through based on the 2014 master plan priorities as well as the mayor's priorities. Our highlights included key trail connectors throughout Columbus, including the final connection of the Alum Creek Trail that connected 22 miles of a regional greenway trail, which actually connected to 32 miles throughout the region, and eventually the Ohio Erie Trail. We opened 2 swimming pools, the Maryland Pool and the Lincoln Pool. We broke ground on 2 community center renovation projects at Driving Park and Glenwood. We were also able to continue our efforts to update HVAC systems in our community centers at the Douglas Community Center. 2016 goals will continue those efforts to reach the mayor's priorities as well as those priorities outlined in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We've combine those priorities into what we call our key focus areas of smart growth, financial sustainability, communications, organizational development, and excellence in program and service delivery. Our 2016 budget proposed is a little bit over $48 million, represents a small increase in expenses from 2015 to reach those goals. The budget also includes a little bit over $9 million in revenue generated through fees and other sources of income through our department. This conservative revenue estimate represents an increase in all major areas of our department. A couple of notes about the request through the expenses. This budget includes the full year operation of our 8 swimming pools, as well as our current centers, including the additional amount for centers scheduled to open in 2016, like the Douglas Center. The budget will include the operation and maintenance of our 220-plus parks, 31 community recreation facilities, athletic complexes, and 6 golf courses. This budget includes the target adjustment for additional parks maintenance supplies and equipment for the Scioto Greenway, as well as the Spring and Long Street caps. The request also includes the additional funding for the 2016 implementation of our 5-year EAB management plan. It includes the addition of 3 key positions that will enable our organization to strengthen our ability to increase our sustainability, including a volunteer coordinator, a construction engineer, and a golf administrator. All these positions will help produce financial savings as well as increase our earned and contributed revenues. This budget includes and maintains our subsidy payments to our partners at the King Arts Center, the Franklin Park Conservatory, and COWIC. Budget also includes an increase in service contracts that will help us increase our communication ability with our residents, our e-commerce capability, as well as recycling and other customer service initiatives. In summary, we look forward to an impactful 2016. The mission of the Recreation and Parks Department is to enrich the lives of the citizens of Columbus. On any given day, someone is being positively affected through our recreation and parks, whether they're walking on a trail, in a fitness class at a community center, getting a nutritious meal, or just reaping the benefits of clean air and water because of our preserved open space. As always, thank you for your support, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director. Your budget also includes, we're going to have 7 full-time positions now for the Scioto Greenways. Is that
correct?
Correct.
Into our downtown downtown maintenance division, correct.
And that's because of the addition of all the additional parkland and the Scioto Mile, correct?
Correct, yeah, and that's, of course, it's an intense type of maintenance down there with the river and the constant flow of the water and having to manage that, and of course, the attendance that we get down there as well.
Thank you. I know that Director Speaks mentioned the APPS program, and so I wanted to so the APPS program will still be funded in your program for about $1.2 million, is that correct?
Absolutely. We're very proud of that program. In fact, as you know, we created the Youth and Family Development Division that now hosts the APPS program. We just moved a new APPS manager into place. Mario is going to be incredible for the program. So yeah, we're looking forward to an incredible, a lot of impacts in 2016.
In your budget, you said that, well, in your budget, the Department of Recreation and Parks has listed as a priority to address the areas in the city that lack adequate parkland. In what ways does the department plan to address this issue?
We have a couple of manners in which we do that. We look at the priorities that were set aside in the 2014 plan, as well as earlier priorities in terms of trying to get every resident within a half mile of a neighborhood park. And so we do that through our planning side, looking at parkland acquisition as well as partnerships throughout, whether it's through metro parks or other community organizations to help provide green space in neighborhood parks throughout the region.
I'm excited that you weren't here when this was really, when I chaired the Recreation and Parks Department, but I just thought it was very important that our recreation facilities had HVAC. And I'm very pleased that we're continuing to do that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions or comments. Dr. Page? Thank you. Thank you. And our final presenter this evening is the Technology Department, and it's Director Gary Cavan.
Thank you, Chair Tyson, Councilmember Page, for the opportunity to present to you our 2016 proposed budget. The Department of Technology services both internal and external customers. We provide support for 12 essential services. Some of those are our network, telecommunications, the multitude of applications, desktop, IT security, our GIS platform, and media services. We also provide support for 6 enterprise applications. These are citywide applications: performance, payroll, GIS, Excel 301. And then we have 54 major line of business applications that we also support, used by various departments, in addition to providing services to some external departments or say organizations such as the Franklin County Board of Commissions. The department's budget is a continuation budget. The 2016 proposed budget is comprised of approximately $18 million from the general fund and a little over $17 million from other funds. Other funds obviously comprised of DPU, or Department of Public Utilities, transportation, and business and zoning services. This is an overall budget increase over the 2015 budget, total of $33,755,000. The increase is approximately $2.6 million, or about 7.6%. The increase can be attributed to higher costs in personnel insurance, additional technology service contracts and costs for new applications being implemented in 2016, additional contracts that we've taken on for the Division of Police for their technology services, $350,000 for risk management workers' compensation claim system, and about $1 million increase in our software licensing. And then we're rolling out a new document management system in building and zoning services, the on-base system. We'll also be doing the same in the city attorney's office, although it will be a different system. It'll be the matrix system. The department's 2016 budget reflects an overall total staffing level of 160 positions, consisting of 154 full-time and 6 part-time. This budget funds a total of 145 positions and 3 part-time, or full-time and 3 part-time positions. 2016 computer equipment purchase will be approximately $545,000. We try on a 3-year basis to continue to buy new equipment in terms of our desktop and other computers. 2016, I just want to talk about a few of the priority projects that you'll be hearing about. We will be renovating our data center on Arlene Gate. We'll also be continue to migrate police applications from their platforms to ours. We'll continue to improve. We'll continue to implement our voice over IP for fire and police. Also, the city attorney's office, I think I mentioned the matrix system will be implemented. HR is implementing a new learning management application for training and workers' compensation. And then last but not least, so we continue to build our fiber network. We're at the point now where we almost have 600 miles of city-owned fiber. We'll be going to every traffic light that, thanks to public service and allowing us to piggyback on their contract for upgrading that system. We continue to enhance My Columbus, or columbus.gov, our website, and then My Columbus, which is our mobile app. It is free to download, both for the Apple as well as the Android. I'm just going to talk about a few of the features on that app. I think Director Davies mentioned 311. That's very important to us. You can actually take a picture and send it in to the 301 office and have an issue resolved that way. Then we have capital improvement data by neighborhood that you can view, health inspection of restaurants, CODA information, parks, bike paths, police and fire stations, paving the way. And this is something that surprises us. The collection schedule is one of the most popular viewed items on our mobile app. I didn't realize, but we're one of the few cities that changes or rotates the collection schedule. So that's very popular. And then Director Davies also mentioned, hopefully sooner, the snow will be coming, and Warrior Watch is also accessible through our mobile app. In the future, we're looking at, in the very near future, something that we've been asked to do, and that is provide information about parking spaces available downtown. So when someone is trying to find a space downtown, you can pull it up on My Columbus mobile app and be able to find a space. Then last but not least, we won the Intelligent Community of the Year award last year. As a result, we'll be hosting the event in 2016, the week of June 13th. I hope that all of you can find the time to participate. With that, thank you, Chair Tyson and Councilmember Page, for allowing me to present our proposed budget. Thank you for your support. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director Cavan. And again, congratulations on winning the Intelligent Awards that we achieved in 2015. I was going to ask you about one of your strategic priorities was to complete the implementation of the mobile dispatching system for phase 1. And I think that you've kind of already answered some of that in your presentations. Is there anything else you want to add about that? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And I have to use that app a little more. I didn't realize it had all that information on it, so I'll have to be a better steward of that. So thank you for your presentation this evening. I don't have any questions. Councilman Page, any questions for the director? Thank you. Right, well, that concludes our hearing. The 2016 budget proposal is essentially a continuation budget. It is 2.6% higher than the adopted 2015 budget. I also want to highlight that we will continue to be fiscally prudent. It will be setting aside dollars for the rainy day fund. $2 million will be put into the reserves for in this 2016 budget, raising the total amount to around $69 million in the rainy day fund. This budget also places a high priority on safety, maintaining the number of uniformed officers and firefighters, funding a community summer safety initiative, and providing resources to support. This won't provide, but I know it's going to be provided. Some for body camera efforts will be provided not out of the general fund budget, but in not in the general fund, right? It's going to be in the...
That is correct. It is not from the general fund budget.
Correct. But we are providing resources from an additional fund. It also focuses on education. The city continues to make education of our youth a priority and beginning a new initiative to support an education advocacy focusing on developing highly skilled and entrepreneurial workforce. And then in health, providing funding for harm reduction program, and then also that addresses our heroin and opiate use, as well as the infant mortality, Celebrate One. Over the next several weeks, City Council will hold hearings on the 2016 budget proposal. This Thursday, December 10th at 5, well, I'm going to give you a schedule because mine starts at 5, but I think there are hearings that start sooner than that. So starting this Thursday, on the 10th at 4 o'clock, Public Service and Transportation and Small and Minority Business Development will have a budget hearing. At 5 o'clock on that same day, Health and Human Services and Workforce Development will start their hearings in council chambers. On Tuesday, December the 15th, Judiciary and Court Administration will host its hearing at 5 o'clock. And on Wednesday, December 16th at 2 p.m., Development, Public Service, Public Utilities will have its hearing. On Wednesday, December 16th at 5 o'clock, the administration budget hearing will take place. And finally, on Thursday, December 17th at 4 p.m., a Recreation and Parks budget hearing at 4, and the education hearing will be at 5. So there'll be a number of hearings over the next couple of weeks, and that will be the opportunity for our viewing and listening public to come down and hear again more in-depth information on the budgets, as well as to be able to give their public comment on the budgets. And so that will happen then. And again, the goal is to be able to pass the overall budget by early February of 2016. Director Rakowski.
I just want to mention two things very quickly. Number one, to thank all of those kind of the unsung heroes that are out there in all of these departments, the fiscal officers and the fiscal managers that do a tremendous amount of work to put the budget together, as well as then monitor that budget and work on it all year. That includes my staff, Aileen Heiser, and all of the budget analysts, Adam Robbins, Rob Newman, and Kyle Sever, that work on the capital side of that. And I did want to mention that for the first time in a very, very long time, we have submitted the budget document to GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, in hopes of getting the award for an outstanding budget presentation for the city of Columbus. So we'll keep you in tune with that. But I wanted to thank Aileen personally for that, because it's really her work with all of her staff that have put together what I think is the most dynamic budget document that we've had in probably 20 years around the city of Columbus. So keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully we'll win the award.
Thank you, Director. And as I conclude tonight's hearing, again, I want to thank you personally for the work that you do and your entire staff. It really has been it's an honor and a privilege to work with you over the time that I have been the finance chair. And I've learned a lot from you, and certainly with your work and your team's work, that's why we are the best city in the country in terms of our, I would say period, not just because we get a AAA bond rating, but we're a great city, well-managed city. I also, so from the bottom of my heart, just thank you. I've enjoyed working with you in this capacity. Also, I want to always thank Mr. Dorian and for presenting tonight, and to each of the directors that are here tonight. Thank you. I mean, you are why our city is a great city, and I always appreciate the budget hearings to be able to listen to each and every one of you share the highlights of your budgets and how hard you work each and every day for the residents of this community. We are a great city because of you and the people that work with you and your department. So thank you for your hard work. You just really make our city great. And I'll just share this today. I found out that, I'm on the National League of Cities Executive Committee, and we had applied as a city to be able to host, I'm now the president of the National Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials. And so this year, I was told today that we're going to be able to host a summer conference. And the reason why we wanted to host a summer conference in Columbus is because of how we are just such a great city. I want to share our best practices with those other cities across the country, and that they can learn and grow from us. And just on the phone today, when they were talking about why coming to Columbus, they were pretty amazed to be able to see all that we're doing, the number of people that we serve, and just as they read our application, just pretty amazed, and they're looking forward to coming here and learning best practices to take back to their cities. And that's because of each and every one of you and the mayor that we've had here for 16 years. So thank you very much for, if it wasn't for your hard work, we may not have gotten the conference here. So thank you. I also want to thank my fellow council members and their staffs who really work hard each and every day to be able to help our community to move forward and working with the directors in our community. I also want to thank City Council's Legislative Research Office, Kate Pashotti, who staffs finance, as well as my staff, Nicole Harper and James Lewis, and then, of course, the hardworking staff of CTV, because without them, our residents wouldn't necessarily be able to know all the great things we're doing here at the City of Columbus, and so I always thank them. And finally, I thank the residents of Columbus for allowing us to be able to have the jobs that we have and to serve them, and so they are also the reason why our city is a great place. And so I want to say thank you to the residents. Again, I look forward to additional budget hearings and getting the budget passed in early February so that we can continue to do the work that we're doing. Thank you and good night.